Thanks for coming this evening. I'm Dr. Brian Edwards. I'm a lipidologist. When I went to my boss and I said, I want to become a lipidologist, and he's a doctor, he said, what's that? So don't feel bad if you haven't heard of it before. So I studied for 2 years, took the boards, and I'm board certified in lipidology. There's only 3 of us in the state of Kansas. So I learned quite a bit of new things that I felt should be brought to the general public, because I really feel we can cure heart disease, in particular most coronary heart attacks, most coronary sudden death, and most strokes, which for the older people is usually more important than whether they live or die. So this is a very important meeting because this information, these are things you can do here and now and inexpensively. For example, this meeting was free. I don't know if you knew that. Tough crowd. Okay. Anyway, the 5 terms right off the bat, there are 3 that you're going to have to learn. Tubby factor, CAC, and CIMT. Now, most of you have never heard this before, and once you get to hear it 7 times, you'll know it well, and you'll go to your doctor and converse knowledgeably, and then he'll go home and look it all up, okay? But I want to start out with one term, which, for those of you who already know this, all right, don't give it away, all right? Now, who here has had their doctor tell them what their non-HDL cholesterol is? Okay. But aren't I your doctor? Or I was? Okay, that doesn't really count. So that's one of the terms. Let's see if you can remember. It's called non-HDL cholesterol. Repeat after me. Non-HDL cholesterol. Don't you love this interaction? Isn't this fun? All right. That's what we're trying to do, is make it fun, okay? So I'm going to ask you later who remembers the term. We'll see. But non-HDL cholesterol is the Tubby factor, because nobody could remember that term. I couldn't remember that term. When I first heard it, they went through it over in a minute and, well, what was that? Okay, it's actually on the guidelines. This is not something I invented. I coined the term, the Tubby factor, because I wanted people to be able to go into the doctor's office and know what to ask for. Okay? So that's the first term. Second term is a CAC, which is a calcium score of the heart, pardon me, and the other is an ultrasound of the neck. We're going to go through this several times so you know. But now, here is the most startling thing you will learn tonight, all right? You can get a nuclear stress test tomorrow where they inject the isotope. You run on the treadmill. The doctor says you're absolutely normal. Absolutely normal. And then the next day you could drop dead. And it's happened. And the same thing for coronary angiogram. Now, for those of you who, a nuclear treadmill test is where you run on the treadmill and they see if your heart has angina or chest pain. Usually they only do that test if you have chest pain or shortness of breath. So the startling reason for that is shown in Glavgov's photo from the New England Journal, 1987. So this is going to be Physiology 101. But this I only learned a few years ago and explained a lot to me. This is plaque. You all know what plaque is. It's buildup of fat in the artery. As the plaque goes into the artery, it doesn't go into the lumen or the hole where the blood flows. It goes in the wall of the artery. And to compensate, the artery gets bigger. Now, you all have a copy of my book. That's what the first page, the cover, shows. It shows remodeling. So when you go home, you can reacquaint yourself, and it's in the book also, this photo. Anyway, this shows that you can have a great deal of plaque, a great deal of disease, and yet your doctor told you you're normal, go home. Don't worry about it. And that has happened to some famous people recently. So what happens is this plaque gets inflamed, because this is a disease of inflammation. And when it gets inflamed, it can rupture. And when it ruptures, your body thinks you're bleeding, So it covers it with platelets, and it can occlude the whole artery, so no blood gets through. This is what kills people. Likewise, in the neck, inflammation, a piece breaks off, it goes to the brain, you have a stroke. So you can get rid of this inflammation if you get your Tubby factor less than 80. Okay? So let's go right to it. The first step of saving the world from plaque is to figure out your Tubby factor. Now, people here, some of you have your lab work with you, I hope. Look at your lab work and look at your total cholesterol. You see, if you've had lab work, you've already have your Tubby factor. Take your total cholesterol and subtract your good cholesterol, the HDL. That's the Tubby factor. It's so easy. So why doesn't your doctor do it? I don't know. But I'm telling you, it's not just your doctor, it's doctors across the country. They do not bother to do this calculation. And you can have a normal LDL, which is what most of you know, right? LDL is what you go by cholesterol. You can have a normal LDL, and yet your Tubby factor is off. And this is where the word Tubby factor came from. Usually it's people who have a little belly like this. Apple obesity will have a discordance, meaning they'll have a bad Tubby factor, even though their doctor said, oh, your cholesterol's good. I had a guy say to me today, my cholesterol's good. What's your Tubby factor? What? Now, what was the term I asked you to remember? Not the ones who know it. Well, you know it already. Give me a break. He said non-HDL cholesterol, right? I mean, what is that, 8 syllables? I don't know. Lose count after the first 6. And for people to try to remember to go ask their doctor, oh, what's my non-HDL cholesterol? Yeah. Well, say Tubby factor, and everybody will know. They may not know, but show them the book, and then they'll say, oh, okay, we'll figure it out. Should be less than 80 if you want to get rid of that plaque that's in your heart. Okay, that's the first step. She has her lab work here. And her LDL cholesterol was 115. Send her home, right? That's a really good cholesterol. She looks healthy. She's not tubby, right? Okay, well, let's do the Tubby factor. Take the total cholesterol, which is 240, and then subtract the HDL, which is, let's see, what is your HDL? HDL cholesterol is 97. So you see, a doctor would see that she has a good cholesterol of 97 and an LDL of 115. They'd tell her, get out of my office. You're too healthy to be here. You're wasting my time. I mean, does anyone disagree with that? I mean, does any of this sound strange to anybody? Now, I went through the math really quick, all right? And I know, subtraction's pretty tough when you haven't been to school in a while, because now we all do it on computers. I know I have a hard time with it. I probably can't do this. I have an engineer here, though. He'll help me. So the total cholesterol is 240, subtract 97. Let's round it off to 100. So 240 minus 100 is 140, Tubby factor, all right? Plus 3, he says, 143. Engineers are very particular about. So her Tubby factor is 143. Well, let me tell you, even in the old guidelines, if you are high risk, you want your Tubby factor to be less than 130. And if you're very high risk, you want your Tubby factor to be less than 100. I'm here today to tell you, if you want regression of plaque, you want your Tubby factor to be less than 80. So your doctor is not treating you. Okay. But I said she has to have plaque. All right, so that's step 2. Let's move on. Step 2 in saving the world from plaque. The CAC. That stands for coronary arterial calcium. It's probably just easier to say calcium score, okay? Now, what's a normal calcium score? 0. If you have 1, you have plaque. Remember, I said if you have plaque, that can rupture and kill you. So all you need is a calcium score of 1. The nice thing is that even though this is radiation, it's a little bit more than a mammogram. And as you know, they're asking people to get mammograms every year after age 40. They tried to change that recently, but I think it still stands, certainly after 50. I'm only asking you to get this first and once. This is step 2. And in Kansas right now, you can get it for $50. So I think in Topeka right now, it's $300, all right? And I think if you go to Lawrence, it's $200. So if you hate driving to Kansas, you can still get it done. Now, insurance normally does not pay for this. Medicare can pay for it. In fact, all my Medicare patients, I got them to have it paid for by Medicare. But your doctor's not going to want to bother with that. It's too much trouble. So just go to Kansas City, pay the $50, and find out if you have plaque. That's step 2. Okay, here we have our hostage over here. And she did go and get a calcium score. So just by looking at her, and I'll let you know what the range is. 1, you have, just very little plaque. 100, you probably have significant plaque. Over 400, we usually send you to the cardiologist just so we don't get sued when you get a heart attack. Okay? So 0 to 1, 100, 400. Those are basically the numbers. Okay? All right. Okay, who wants to say she had a 0? Greg. You figure, why would I have her up here if she had a 0? Who wants to say she had 100? 1. Great participation for a latecomer. Thank you very much. Who had greater than 400 bet? And the rest of you, you just don't care. You just want the free book and get out of here, right? Okay, there we have 100. We have one person said 0, right, Greg?
Okay, I'll go 4 just to.
What did you say?
So I'll go 400.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it doesn't cost you any money, So. As I say, everything here is free tonight. So. All right. It's 0.
Wow.
That's step 2. Sorry about that. I'll get that later. Let's go to step 3. This is a really complicated one. This is worse than non-HDL cholesterol. CIMT means carotid intimal thickness. Now, what you need to know is this is not of the heart, this is of the neck. 2 arteries here called carotids, correct? Now, a lot of you may have heard of this Lifeline that goes to the church and for $140 does all these tests. Don't recommend it. The test is not that good in my opinion. It shows late disease. You have to have blockage of the lumen. Remember I showed you that photo before anything shows up on that. And we're trying to find disease early, right? So I don't really recommend spending $150 for that, especially when in town at the Heart Center here, Topeka Heart Center, or Stormont Vale, you can get it for $100, and it is specifically of the wall of the carotid, okay? And that's the key, all right? Now, the beauty of this is it's ultrasound, no radiation. So you can get this every 2 years and not worry about any side effects, okay? It's wonderful. Now, doctors don't understand this when I say to them. Okay, they say, so the calcium score is negative, so you don't need a CIMT. Well, no, you do to see if maybe it's going to show up in the neck and not the heart. So then the doctors say, well, okay, so the calcium score is positive, then you don't need a CIMT. Well, no, you do, because you're going to use the CIMT every 2 years to see if your disease is getting worse or better. All right? This is step 3. It's $100. So I'm sorry. Again, insurance does not pay for this. You are going to have to spend some money on your health. It's going to be $150 up to this point. But let me tell you, if you go for a nuclear stress test, that's more than $1,000. A ultrasound of the neck the old way is usually $600. And now insurance will pay for most of this, but still these are expensive tests. I'm showing you tests that are better and cheaper. I don't make any money on this. These tests are available in Topeka. You can find out tomorrow, next week, if you have disease. And no matter how